right. So you all enjoy the documentary? Yeah. All right. Well, it looks a lot of fun to go out and do. It all starts with a bunch of research, though. You have to really, look into the history. And one of the ways I started that was, if you noticed, Pat White was there. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Pat. You guys have met Pat White. She wrote the History of Raynham. So it's a great book to start on, to look into, the history of the town. And then Andrew Boisfort right here, this is the Old Colony Historical Society, and they have an entire room of books dedicated just to the history of this town. And as you can see, they have all of Toby Gilmore's stuff. They have his cannon right down there. They have his uniform and his hat and his canteen and a bunch of other things there as well. From the Leonard family, from King Philip's War. You'll see a lot of stuff there that represents the history of this town. Do you guys have any questions about anything? Yes? Oh. Well,
what year was the Civil War?
Oh, what year was the Civil War? Yes. All right. Well, the Civil War is the section that would come right after this, because right now we're up to around the War of 1812, the post-war years for the Revolution. The Civil War came after. It was around 1860 to 1865. Yes. In order to make all 4 hours of this documentary, it took me around 6 months, from researching and interviewing and trying to track down all these people. I actually went down and tracked down the Wampanoag Indians, Native Americans, and we did a nice interview with the chief of the tribe and actually got their point of view of the whole King Philip War. So, it's a lot of work trying to track everyone down, really. Yes?
How many episodes did you make?
I made 4 episodes. I figured it was 4 hours, so it made it nice and easy to cut it into 4 sections. Yes? What's that?
When was this made?
This was made in last summer, I believe. It was finished for last summer, actually, so. Yes?
Was it easy or hard to make this video?
You start out and it seems like it's going to be really easy, and then you start putting in more and more work, and it turns out it's a lot harder to try and track people down and try and get everybody's schedules to match up. But, looking back on the whole thing, it was a lot of work, but it was well worth it, and I feel like it came out really well so that everybody can, now learn a little bit more about the town. And it's a little bit easier than just picking up a book sometimes, because there's, so much more information. Yes? What does it feel like? It feels really good once it's done. When you're actually doing it, you're just concentrating on all the work, and you can get a little tired of it sometimes, but looking back on everything after it's finished, it's a great feeling. Yes?
Listening to all these people and kind of videotape what they said. Did you do it all by yourself, kind of? Or?
Yes, I actually I did do this all by myself, unfortunately. But I actually wrote down every word people said, and then I was able to go back and take their written statements and edit the video to make more sense that way. It's a lot of work to write down every word somebody says, but it makes the job afterwards so much easier. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you do have to keep going back and forth between the two speakers, especially because if you notice, they're not always telling the exact same story about a person, especially if you paid attention to the Toby Gilmore section, because there's a lot of rumors and stories surrounding him that may not necessarily be true. So trying to dig down and find that, little nugget of truth in there is a little bit harder than it looks. And so that's why we tried to show you all the stories, so that we're not saying they're not true. They're great stories and they really represent who Toby Gilmore was overall, but we're also trying to show you what is actually true after digging through all these people. Yes? Yes, I actually went and interviewed all these people. I, tracked down Don McKinnon, and I actually interviewed all the town officials here in town, from the town accountant up to the town manager. Tried not to miss anyone. Yes?
How did you track down people
Oh, that's a good question. Some of the people, like town officials, were pretty easy. They're all down at town hall most of the time, so they're pretty easy to find. But some of the people, like the Native Americans, the Native American Chief Black Eagle, he was a little bit harder to track down. But I actually got in touch with him through a tribe historian who had actually recently been in contact with him. They have a reservation down in Fall River, actually, where you can go down and talk with them. It's a much smaller tribe now than it used to be, but they are still there, and they love talking to people and discussing their history and how they came to be. Yes? What's that? I interviewed around 20 to 30 people for this documentary. Unfortunately, not all of them made it into the documentary. I tried to do the best I could, but even with 4 hours to fill, 30 people's quite a bit to try and fit in there. Yes?
How long did it take you
To track down one person? Well, I'd say the longest was trying to track down Chief Black Eagle. I spent about a month and a half trying to get in touch with him. He was either traveling, doing presentations elsewhere, because as you can imagine, the Wampanoags are a very famous tribe, so a lot of people wanted to talk to him as well. So it was really tough to set up the interview as well once I did finally track him down. Yes? What's that? Can you speak up? Oh, the different pictures. So most of those pictures I either took myself or I got a copy from Old Colony. Old Colony has several pictures from the, early and 1900s and late 1800s. So you can actually find a lot of old pictures of places that simply don't exist in town anymore. Like the old Gilmore Farm and plenty of other places that aren't quite the way they used to be. Yes, they're in the back. Yes?
Did you get some information with a story about King Philip's head being on a stick from
Oh, yes. So in the first episode, we cover King Philip. And King Philip, I actually spent a lot of time trying to track down where his head actually went. He was beheaded. We did know that much. And I tracked down through Benjamin Church, the man who did it. I actually tracked through his own journal that he brought it back to Plymouth and sold it for 2 shillings. Shillings are a very small amount of money, and they don't exist here in America anymore. But it's like pennies. So he was very upset because he's pretty much single-handedly ended the war and for it he got 2 pennies. You could imagine how upset you would be if that's all you got.
That is a very famous story in the third grade.
Oh yes.
Kids really enjoy learning about that story, so we'll have to. The other thing, just so our third grade knows, Mr. Russell's been nice enough to let us borrow the video of the history of Raynham, so we'll have it here at the school to be able to, in future years, be able to look at different parts of it too. Okay?
You.
How long did it take to research?
To do the research alone, that was about a solid month of not just reading. I also did preliminary interviews with several of these people. So I spoke with Kathleen Roberts, Pat White, Don McKinnon, Andrew Boisvert, and it was a solid month of just reading and talking with them about the history before I felt comfortable enough to ask them questions about the history.
Guys, what about 2 more questions because we're just running out of time, all right? 2 more
All right.
questions, please.
Can I get you?
Where is King Philip's Head?
Where is King Philip's Head? After Cotton Mather stole the jawbone in around 1707, I believe, the trail went absolutely cold. There's no mention of it ever in anything that I can find after 1707. So I assume it would probably be under where the old Plymouth Fort is, but it's an old Native American burial ground that is also underneath the fort. So it's also not, you can't really dig it up and try and look for it anymore. Yes?
How much time did it take you to do one part of the film?
So in order to do one part, I actually interviewed everybody and got all the footage together first. The first episode came together really easily, actually. And that one, after I was done with the interviews, was probably finished in about 2 weeks. Now, to put the final 3 together took much longer. I would say I probably spent another 2 to 3 months just putting the last bit together. So.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Yep. Oh, thank you for having me.
Now, boys and girls, yes, let's give a round of applause for Mr. Russell. And just so you know, too, in the third grade, we're going to be doing more research projects, just like Mr. Russell was explaining about. Maybe animals, maybe Revolutionary War. In third grade, we're going to do some more research up until the end of the year. So maybe some of the things he talked about, researching, taking notes, digging for information, talking to people, are different things that we can use when we start doing our research reports at the end of the year. Let's give one more round of applause for Mr. Russell. Thank you very much.
Hey, no problem. Thank you.